Hi, my name is Donna Augustine Burnett. I represent Virginia Tech, the lead organization in the consortium that supports the U.S. Army's educational outreach programs. Today I'm here to talk to you about the RFP we have recently released to solicit a new consortium member to coordinate the U.S. Army's Gains in the Education of Mathematics and Science, or GEMS program, Science and Engineering Apprentice program, or SEAP, and the College Qualified Leaders CQL program. The following presentation is offered in supplement to the RFP, which is available to you online. In the presentation, you will be introduced to Mr. Louis Lopez, the Cooperative Agreement Manager for the Army Educational Outreach Program, or AEOP, who will provide an overview of the AEOP. Dr. Deborah Urich, the Army Subject Matter Expert for the GEMS, SEAP, and CQL programs, who will provide background on the suite of programs. And Ms. Ashley Wade, Cooperative Agreement Manager for the Army Educational Outreach Programs and Technical Contact for the current RFP, who will go through the RFP requirements. Before the presentation, I would like to review some important dates. The pre-proposal, which is an optional submission but highly encouraged, is due on the 5th of October at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The full proposal is due on the 9th of November at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. These proposals will be submitted electronically to me at donna.augustine@vt.edu. We plan to provide a first round notification on the 21st of November, and the award announcement will be made on the 18th of December. All questions about the RFP should be directed to me via email at donna.augustine@vt.edu. These questions and their answers will be summarized and provided in fact format on our website. Additionally, I will host office hours or times at which you can call with your questions at the times listed below. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Mr. Louis Lopez.
My name is Louis Lopez with the U.S. Army Research Development and Engineering Command. I'm one of the Army's Cooperative Agreement Manager for AEOP's Youth Science Cooperative Agreement. And today I want to talk to you about this request for proposal for the programs under AEOP. STEM talent is essential to delivering innovative solutions for our nation. The Department of the Army echoes this concern, and thus under the U.S. Army Educational Outreach Program is seeking proposals in partnership with Virginia Tech as the lead organization for the GEMS, SEAP, and CQL programs. Inspiring and building the next generation of STEM talent pool to ensure our national security and global competitiveness is important to the U.S. Army. The pipeline of programs in AEOP includes competitions, unique Army lab experiences, scholarships and awards, and GEMS, SEAP, and CQL plays an important part of this portfolio of programs. At this point, I would like to introduce Dr. Deborah Urich, our Army subject matter expert for the GEMS, SEAP, CQL programs.
My name is Dr. Deborah Urich, and I am a neuropharmacologist at the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. Over the years, I developed a very strong interest in science education, working with other colleagues with the same sense that our nation needed help in terms of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. Going back early in my career, we recognized that the Science and Engineering Apprentice program was an excellent way to bring youth into our laboratories. But we recognized very early that students were always from very advantaged backgrounds with many opportunities for science activities. And what we didn't see were large parts of the population in the Washington area who did not take part in those activities. So we developed new programs associated with the Science and Engineering Apprentice program, creating a pipeline of STEM activities to bring children forward, sometimes from areas where they wouldn't have mentorship in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And how we did that was the natural hierarchy of our laboratories, where we had postdoctoral staff, We had college students, a few, and we had the potential for more staff to work with them and learn about science in our labs. And so we reached out and started creating a program that's now called the Gains in the Education of Mathematics and Science program. And we developed the most exciting thing about science, which is an experiment that a child could do under the instruction of a college student. We named that concept a near-peer mentor for the way that those students were able to mentor the child in terms of their future in science, and also to teach them the concepts that are associated with science. So we had then developed a new program that preceded the Science and Engineering Apprentice program called Gains in the Education of Math and Science. So we also needed a program, it actually already existed, called College Qualified Leaders, in order for those near-peer mentors, those college students, to take part in the work that we had going on in our laboratories and to actually teach those young students about science. And so we created the GEMS program, and we greatly enhanced the College Qualified Leaders, or SEQL program. These are important stepping stones to a career in science or just enhanced science literacy. Gains in the Education of Math and Science also brings to a community of students the understanding of what science is, what the careers are, and where they can learn about these things. Those near-peer mentors bring a lot of science to those children, but a lot of mentorship about what studies they need to take on, the most difficult classes in their classrooms, how they need to look at a college career potentially, and how that's done in the modern day. Instead of from a scientist like me, they learn from a near-peer mentor or a college student. It's a wonderful continuum of programs, a pipeline in STEM education. The GEMS program, the Gains in the Education of Math and Science program, actually includes levels of programming. We have programming for beginners, and soon discovered we needed programming for another level of learning, which we call intermediate. And then we discovered that there were still students who needed that step forward and potentially into the Science and Engineering Apprentice program through what we called advanced GEMS. And those students, they needed another stepping stone. It became clear very, very early on that the continuity, the likelihood that those students would go into another program still wasn't good enough. So we created levels of GEMS. And then when we felt that the Science and Engineering Apprentice program, there were many fewer opportunities there, we actually felt that those students who are very advanced, there wasn't necessarily a place for the advanced GEMS student. And what we found is by the time we were finished with advanced GEMS, we actually had oftentimes a junior or senior. And those students then went into our College Qualified Leaders program and participated in a laboratory, or they might become a near-peer mentor, the most sought after role in the GEMS program. They'd seen excellent near-peer mentors, they loved what they did, and so those students often became a near-peer mentor and worked on our education programs while they then gained experiences in our laboratories. So a student could go from GEMS to SEAP to SQL, or they could actually go from GEMS to SQL. And what we found over the years is that these students now work in our laboratories and have worked in other laboratories in the Medical Research and Material Command. And we feel that that kind of continuity is important, along with great mentorship along the way, to actually bringing somebody to a scientific career. The other thing that we feel needs to happen in the future, and it really is something that's being requested in this request for proposals, is that other laboratories besides the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research take on these programs and expand their abilities. We have many laboratories doing GEMS now, but they don't have active SEAP programs, and they actually have only the students who are teaching in GEMS as SQL participants. So their College Qualified Leaders program, their SQL program could be much bigger, and they could have SQLs working in their laboratories depending on the needs of those individual laboratories. So creating this continuum in RB laboratories is what we're after as part of this relationship with a partner in the cooperative agreement.
Ashley Wade. I am one of the cooperative agreement managers for the consortium that supports the Army Education Outreach Program. I just wanted to discuss with you today the 4 major tasks that the Army has defined associated with the GEMS, SEAP, and CQL programs. You can look at your RFP for the full outline of the 4 tasks, but I just want to give you kind of a brief overview today. The first task you'll see in the RFP is the program management task. So what we'll refer to as the awardee here, which is the organization that is selected out of this RFP to administer these 3 programs, will be responsible for planning and performing in coordination with the local program coordinators that Ms. Augustine Burnett discussed earlier, the Army's GEMS, SEAP, and CQL programs. The awardee will provide program support across multiple laboratories, including program marketing, management of the application processes, maintaining the program alumni information, and supporting the Army subject matter expert in implementation of the training meeting. If you look at the task 1 in your RFP, you'll see that the Army has identified several objectives associated with this task. The first objective is to coordinate with several local program coordinators, referred to as LPCs, in the planning, recruiting, marketing, and performance of the GEMS, SEAP, and CQL programs. That will include coordinating communication of guidance that comes from the cooperative agreement managers regarding the program structure, content, evaluation objectives for the programs, and expected outcomes at the laboratories. Another objective associated with task 1 is administration of the program content. That includes making sure that the AEOP website is up to date, including uploading new application needs and content as communicated by the LPCs and program materials associated with the programs. It's important, another important objective is to track and identify program alumni for long-term evaluation purposes through the GEMS, SEAP, and CQL programs. Developing in coordination with the LO the communications and program-specific marketing plans associated with GEMS, SEAP, and CQL. That includes keeping in mind the overall Army Education Outreach Program goals for communications and marketing, and incorporating that branding into the GEMS, SEAP, and CQL brands. And finally, for task 1, supporting the Army subject matter expert in the planning and execution of the trainings that will be provided to the LPCs on an annual basis. Task 2 under the RFP for GEMS, SEAP, and CQL is fiscal management, safety, and security. All very important areas to remember when executing programs that involve putting students in Army laboratories. There are 4 major objectives under this task. Funds management tracking to assure participant stipends are paid by participating labs and funds are administered through the cooperative agreement process appropriately. The important thing to remember in this task is that funds must be tracked effectively from the time that they leave individual Army laboratories, flow through the Army Research Office, are committed and obligated onto the cooperative agreement, and arrive at the recipient in the recipient's account through Virginia Tech to be used to pay student stipends in the programs. These funds account for a variety of different types and lines of accounting within the Army with different expiration dates and requirements. So the consortium member that will be administering these programs will be expected to work very closely with the CAMs to ensure that all the appropriate information and requirements are followed in the expenditure of those types of funding. What should be taken away from this is that it's incredibly important for the incumbent of this, or the recipient of this, this piece of the grant, to have strong accounting skills and strong organizational skills. to provide a little more information on how the flow of funding works and the amounts that are allotted, individual laboratories who participate in the GEMS, the SEAP and CQL programs, provide funding in varying amounts to the Army Research Office to be added to this cooperative agreement to support student interns. So the funds vary from year to year depending on what research funds are available to support the students. So when you as the offerers are preparing your budgets and trying to predict from year to year what fundings will be needed, please don't get too wrapped up in the idea of correctly guessing the funding amounts for college SEQL students versus high school SEAP students or GEMS students. The Army will provide on a regular basis chunks of money to support those students and pay their stipends, and the offer will be notified by the Army what's available on an annual basis. The second objective under the second task is efficient, automated, and timely processing of participant stipends. Participants in GEMS, SEAP, and CQL receive stipends at different times throughout the year in different dollar amounts. So it's important that the person coming in to administer these programs keep good records financially, communicate regularly with the local program coordinators to ensure that the proper students, teachers, and near-peer mentors are logged into the system and are receiving stipends when they're expected to. With regards to processing student stipends, there's several things the performer should consider. It's important to consider that the Army would like automated process as much as possible with the stipend processing. So it's recommended that the performer develop an automated portal for the LPCs to submit their stipend requests securely on a regular basis. The lead organization and the CAM should also have the ability to review and or approve those stipend requests through the portal electronically. It's important for the performer to develop a plan for appropriate and secure collection of the student's personal information that does not require collecting Social Security numbers for any of the stipend checks. Also important to provide checks for GEMS participants at the end of each program session, a total of about $1,200 per summer, which amounts to about $150,000. The LPCs must receive the checks from the performer or the IPA and be able to present those to the students at the end of each session closing day. That's usually requires a 3-day or less turnaround from the time the LPC submits the student list at the beginning of the GEMS week to the final day closing, which is usually on a Friday. It's important for the performer to coordinate with the LPCs for program and site-specific GEMS stipend processing issues. Some of our labs have special needs, including splitting the stipend payments for participants so that they receive half of their stipend at the beginning of the week and half upon completion of the GEMS week. Also important to remember that some of our laboratories for our larger stipend amounts would prefer to have direct deposit over paper checks. So for our GEMS students in smaller dollar amounts, we'd like an option of paper checks, but for larger dollar amounts, especially for our SEQL students, we would be more interested in direct deposit options. Another objective under Task 2 is to secure an adequate life and accident insurance policy for program participants. This is a particularly important objective under the task because we have students of all ages coming into Army research laboratories conducting experiments with different or varying levels of mentorship and oversight. So it's critically important that the incoming performer make sure that a policy is secured that will cover the students. We have provided on the website a copy of the current policy with acceptable insurance limits and standards so that anyone interested in applying for this RFP has that information available, what our minimum expectations are in that policy. The fourth and final objective under the second task is to collect security information needed in advance of program start dates and coordinate with the local program coordinators as they identify and select students to come work in the laboratories. Army laboratories have varying levels of security requirements and expectations when students come to work in the laboratories, and the local program coordinators will rely heavily on this incoming performer to help them get student data collected, complete necessary security forms, and ensure that everything is in order so that the student has the necessary passes to come into the laboratory on their first day of their internship. The third task defined for GEMS, SEAP, and CQL is program evaluation. Under the program evaluation task, there are 4 Army objectives. It's important first to note that the performer will be expected to cooperate with the lead organization on evaluation and the STEM outreach staff at the lead organization and with the Army to develop cross-site assessment tools for these programs. The performer will be expected to provide leadership in evaluation training for the local program coordinators, ensuring that they understand appropriate collection and storage of student data and use of the assessment tools that are distributed to them. The performer will be expected to facilitate evaluation, distribution, completion, and results sharing across the sites through the local program coordinators once it becomes available. And finally, the performer will be expected to respond appropriately to the recommendations set forth by the CAM and the Army subject matter expert with regards to the evaluation of these programs. The fourth and final task in the request for proposals is the participation and cooperation within the consortium in the broader Army Educational Outreach Program. The performer will be expected to participate in the cooperative agreement through an IPA or multiple IPAs, which are selected points of contact or representatives for GEMS, SEAP, and CQL. The performing organization will be expected to identify one consortium management committee member who will represent the organization as a whole at the consortium committee meetings. In the case of GEMS, SEAP, and CQL, we see that they're pretty complex and somewhat different programs, so there may be the necessity to identify more than one IPA for these programs. As an example, one IPA with a focus on GEMS specifically, one with a focus on the apprenticeship, SEAP, and CQL, keeping in mind that as a pipeline of or a continuum of experiences, those 2 IPAs will be working in close coordination together to ensure that the programs work in lockstep at the different laboratories where they're implemented. Some of the main Army objectives under the fourth task include upon award identifying this IPA and the this IPA or multiple IPAs if you decide to go that route, and identifying the CMC representative that will represent the organization at the meetings. Engaging the new IPA in consortium business for the overall achievement of the Army Education Outreach Program mission. And finally, developing an effective model for Army nonprofit education institutions or for-profit organizations to engage in meaningful STEM outreach.
Pre-proposals should be submitted electronically to Virginia Tech at the email address of donna.augustine@vt.edu by 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on October 5th. Pre-proposals are a great idea. If you submit a pre-proposal, it is your opportunity to receive feedback from Virginia Tech to help you align your proposal with the RFP. Pre-proposals are non-binding. They are encouraged but not required. Full proposals. The details on what you should submit in your full proposals are included in the written RFP. To summarize, these should include a cover page, a project summary, a table of contents, and a narrative. Note that the narrative should not exceed the maximum limit of 15 pages, excluding the curriculum vitae of your personnel, references, budget, and other relevant appendices. Please submit condensed versions of your personnel CVs. Budget. To submit a full proposal, you should submit 2 complete budgets utilizing the templates available with the RFP. You should submit 1 budget for the GEMS program and then a separate budget for the SEAP and CQL programs combined. Follow the guidelines provided in the written RFP. Utilize the stipend amounts provided in the written RFP. In conclusion, we look forward to your submission of a proposal and response to the RFP for the GEMS, SEAP, and CQL programs. If you have any questions in writing your proposal, please email them to donna.augustine@vt.edu. Also, consider participating in the office hours. Thank you.